Welcome to the world of research. In this video, we are going to learn some more helpful hints on writing a research paper or a thesis. In our previous videos, we have discussed how to write an introduction chapter. So therefore, let's start with the literature review. University of Edinburgh describes a literature review as: a literature review is a piece of academic writing demonstrating knowledge and understanding of the academic literature on a specific topic placed in context. There are several types of literature reviews. Narrative or traditional literature reviews. Narrative or traditional literature reviews critique and summarizes a body of literature about the thesis topic. The literature is researched from the relevant databases and is generally very selective in the material used. The criteria for literature selection for a narrative review is not always made open to the reader. These reviews are very useful in gathering and synthesizing the literature. The principal purpose of a narrative review is to give the author and reader a comprehensive overview of the topic and to highlight significant areas of research. Narrative reviews can help to identify gaps in the research and help to refine and define research questions. Where a narrative approach differs from a systematic approach is the notation of search methods criteria for selection. A systematic review will include selection criteria for inclusion or exclusion, whereas a narrative review does not list the inclusion-exclusion criteria. This could lead to narrative reviews being seen as containing a bias. Theoretical review. The theoretical literature review helps to establish what theories already exist, the relationship between them, to what degree the existing theories have been investigated, and to develop new hypotheses to be tested. A chronological literature review. A chronological literature review describes each work in succession starting with the earliest available information. Critical review. Critical review aims to demonstrate writer has extensively researched literature and critically evaluated its quality. It goes beyond mere description to include degree of analysis and conceptual innovation. It is typically hypothesis or it seeks to identify most significant items in the field. No formal quality assessment. It attempts to evaluate according to contribution. It is typically narrative, perhaps conceptual or chronological. The significant component is that it seeks to identify conceptual contribution to embody existing or derive new theory. Mapping review or systematic map. Map out existing literature from which to commission further reviews and or primary research by identifying gaps in research literature. Completeness of searching determined by time or scope constraints. No formal quality assessment is involved. It may be graphical or tabular. It characterizes quantity and quality of literature, perhaps by study design and other key features. It may identify need for primary or secondary research. Meta-analysis. Technique that statistically combines the results of quantitative studies to provide a more precise effect of the results. It aims for exhaustive, comprehensive searching, may use funnel plot to assess completeness. Quality assessment may determine inclusion, exclusion, and or sensitivity analysis. It may be graphical and tabular with narrative commentary. It involves numerical analysis of measures of effect assuming absence of heterogeneity. Mixed studies review or mixed methods review. This refers to any combination of methods where one significant component is a literature review, usually systematic. Within a review context, it refers to a combination of review approaches, for example, combining quantitative with qualitative research or outcome with process studies. It requires either very sensitive search to retrieve all studies or separately conceived quantitative and qualitative strategies. It requires either a generic appraisal instrument or separate appraisal processes with corresponding checklists. Typically, both components will be presented as narratives and in tables. It may also employ graphical means of integrating quantitative and qualitative studies. Analysis may categorize both literatures and look for correlations between characteristics or use gap analysis to identify aspects absent in one literature. Quantitative systematic review or qualitative evidence synthesis. This is a method for integrating or comparing the findings from qualitative studies. It looks for themes or constructs that lie in or across individual qualitative studies. It may employ selective or purposive sampling. Quality assessment typically used to mediate messages, not for inclusion or exclusion. It involves qualitative narrative synthesis. It may be thematic analysis, may include conceptual models. Rapid review. Assessment of what is already known about a policy or practice issue by using systematic review methods to search and is critically appraise existing research. Completeness of searching determined by time constraints. Time-limited formal quality assessment. It is typically narrative and tabular. Quantities of literature and overall quality direction of effect of literature is also determined in rapid review. Scoping review. Scoping review is preliminary assessment of potential size and scope of available research literature. It aims to identify nature and extent of research evidence, usually including ongoing research. Completeness of searching determined by time or scope constraints. It may include research in progress. No formal quality assessment is required, typically tabular with some narrative commentary. It categorizes quantity and quality of literature, perhaps by study design and other key features. It also attempts to specify a viable review. State-of-the-art review. State-of-the-art review tend to address more current matters in contrast to other combined retrospective and current approaches. It may offer new perspectives. It may also aims for comprehensive searching of current literature. No formal quality assessment. Typically narrative, but may have tabular accompaniment. Current state of knowledge and priorities for future investigation and research. Systematic review. Seeks to systematically search for, appraise, and synthesize research evidence, often adhering to guidelines on the conduct of a review. It aims for comprehensive searching. Quality assessment may determine inclusion or exclusion. Typically narrative with tabular representations. What is known? Recommendations for practice. What remains unknown? Uncertainty around findings, recommendations for future research. Systematic search and review. It combines strengths of critical review with a comprehensive search process. typically addresses broad questions to produce best evidence synthesis. It aims for exhaustive and comprehensive searching, may or may not include quality assessment. Minimal narrative, tabular summary of studies is represented. But is known recommendations for practice, it has some limitations as well. Systematized review. Systematized review elements of systematic review process while stopping short of systematic review. It is typically conducted as postgraduate student assessment and assignments. May or may not include comprehensive searching. It may or may not include quality assessment, typically narrative with tabular representations. What is known? Uncertainty around findings and limitation of methodology. Umbrella review specifically refers to review compiling evidence from multiple reviews into one accessible and usable document. It focuses on broad condition or problem for which there are competing interventions and highlights reviews that address these interventions and their results. Identification of component reviews, but no search for primary studies. Quality assessment of studies within component reviews and or reviews themselves. Graphical and tabular with narrative commentary. What is known? Recommendations for practice. What remains unknown? Recommendations for future research. Now, moving on to professional ethics. The research community. Researchers have a shared responsibility towards each other within the research community. They should behave truthfully, treat each other with respect, and recognize each other's contributions in projects and publications. Researchers have a collective responsibility for promoting the values and norms of research ethics in their teaching, supervision, dissemination, and publication. Free and independent research. Researchers should enjoy individual freedom and have real independence. Institutional self-regulation shall be ethically responsible and cannot violate the norms of good scientific practice. Number 2. Obligations of research community. Researchers shall contribute to building academic communities characterized by openness and collegiality. Number 3. Academic assessment. Researchers must be open about roles and interests in relation to academic assessments. Number 4. Supervisors and project leaders. Supervisors and project leaders have a general and comprehensive responsibility for research ethics in projects conducted under their purview. Number 5. The supervisory relationship. Supervisors and students or the MS PhD candidates must treat each other with respect. Supervisors should not misuse their position to their advantage. This applies in both academic and personal matters. Number 6. Openness, accountability, and critique. Research material results should be made available to others as openly as possible to facilitate learning, accountability, and critique. Number 7. Scientific publication. Scientific publication and other modes of publication are important both to ensure the quality of the research and to protect fundamental norms regarding originality, accountability, and critique. Number 8. Good citation practice. All research should follow good citation practice. Recognition of the work of others is important to maintain a culture, and it is a precondition for accountability and critique. Number 9. Co-authorship. Researchers shall respect the contributions of others and comply with recognized norms of co-authorship and collaboration. Number 10. Plagiarism. Stealing someone else's work and presenting it as one's own is incompatible with good scientific practice. Number 11. Fabrication and falsification. Fabricating or forging research material or results is incompatible with good scientific practice. Number 12. Distortion and concealment. Distorting or concealing relevant interpretations or analysis is incompatible with good scientific practice. Number 13. Safety and security. Researchers are responsible for continuously assessing their own safety and the safety of others. Research institutions should have routines for handling risk and society. Security. Number 14. International collaboration. Researchers at institutions in Norway and in many other areas and states, they used to comply with their state's rules and guidelines when conducting research in their countries and in other countries. So researchers has to and they must adhere to these research responsibilities and these norms which are being set by the respective states. Research participants. Researchers have responsibilities towards all persons involved in or affected by research. Researchers should respect the participants' human dignity and consider their personal integrity, safety, and well-being. Participation in research should, as a rule, be based on information and consent. Number 15. Consent to participate in research. As a main rule, researchers are ethically obliged to obtain consent from the research participants. Ethical consent to participate should be voluntary, informed, and unambiguous, and it is preferably documentable. Number 16. Impaired capacity to consent. When research participants' capacity to provide consent is impaired or absent, researchers have a particular responsibility to safeguard their freedoms, rights, and human dignity. Number 17. Protection of children. Children who participate in research have a particular right to protection. As a main rule, researchers must obtain consent from both the parents and from the children themselves. In some cases, children may consent on their own. Number 18. Exceptions from the demand for consent. In some situations, including persons in research, even though ethical consent is not obtained, may be responsible. Researchers are nonetheless responsible for providing information. Number 19. Transparency about roles and responsibilities. Researchers are responsible for clarifying to the participants the boundaries, expectations, and requirements associated with the role of a researcher. Number 20. Anonymity. Researchers must ensure that anonymity is protected when it has been agreed upon or otherwise is prudent. Number 21. Confidentiality. Researchers shall handle the data confidentially when it is being agreed upon or otherwise is prudent. If researchers plan to use the data collected by others on the condition of confidentiality, they must ensure that permission to depart from this condition has been secured. Number 22. Duty of notification. Researchers have a duty to notify when the participants are endangering themselves or others. In certain situations, researchers must depart from the demand for confidentiality to safeguard the duty to notify. Number 23. Privacy and family life. Researchers should respect privacy and family life. Number 24. Storage and sharing of research material. Research data and other research material should be stored and shared responsibly. Number 25. Reporting the results. Researchers shall report the results to the participants in a clear and responsible way. Number 26. Direct and indirect involvement. Researchers have a responsibility towards persons who are directly or indirectly affected by the research. Number 27. Values and motives. Researchers should respect different values and attitudes. Researchers should not attribute irrational motives unless they can provide convincing documentations or justification. Number 28. Risk of harm and disadvantage. Researchers are responsible for avoiding exposure of research participants to harm and unreasonable disadvantages in the course of doing research. Participants may consent to a certain degree of risk of discomfort and disadvantage. Groups and institutions. Disadvantaged and vulnerable groups have a particular need for protection. Specific attention may be required in research across cultures or on cultural heritage. Public officers and private organizations have a joint responsibility to ensure that their participation in research is in accordance with recognized norms of research ethics. 29. Disadvantaged and vulnerable groups. Researchers have a special responsibility to protect the integrity and interests of disadvantaged and vulnerable groups. Number 30. Respect for cultural differences. In research on culturally defined groups, gaining knowledge about and respect the local context and social relations is important. Understanding the significance of cultural differences is crucial to research, but does not necessarily entail acceptance of all cultural practices. Number 31. Cultural heritage. Knowledge of the past is important to the present and the future. Institutions and researchers shall treat all types of cultural heritage responsibly. Number 32. Public administration. Public officers should enable independent research on their activities and data. Number 33. Private companies and organizations. Private companies and organizations should provide for research on their activities and data. Commissioners, funders, and collaborators. Researchers and research institutions have obligations towards commissioners, funders, and collaborators. Similarly, other research actors have obligations towards researchers and research institutions. Research ethics balance the norms of openness and independence against demands for social utility and relevance. Number 34. Independence in research. All research actors must protect the independence of the researchers against pressure and control. Number 35. The responsibility of the research institutions. Research institutions must ensure that all research is in accordance with recognized norms of research ethics. This is particularly important when such norms are under pressure. Number 36. Commissioners and funders. Commissioners and funders are jointly responsible for ensuring that their participation in research is in accordance with recognized norms of research ethics. Strategic adaptation of projects to bypass ethical norms should not occur. Number 37. Collaborative projects. Collaborators have a joint responsibility for ensuring that their participation in research is in accordance with recognized norms of research ethics. Research ethics must be guaranteed in all agreements and collaboration arrangements. Number 38. User involvement. Research ethics must be ensured in all modes of user involvement. Number 39. Transparency about funding, roles, and interests. All research actors are responsible for securing transparency about funding and interests. Number 40. Use of research results. All researchers are responsible for ensuring that the use and presentation of their results are ethically responsible. Number 41. The right to publication and public presentation. Dear audience, the right to publication and publication involves that all research actors have a responsibility to promote open research in scientific publications and other modes of public presentation. Number 42. Publication ethics. Scientific publishers must promote norms of research ethics. Dissemination of research. Researchers and research institutions have a responsibility to disseminate scientific results, methods, and attitudes from their own and other research to the society at large. Dissemination of research includes dialogue across disciplines, interaction with different actors in society, and participation in the public debates. Number 43. Dissemination as a social responsibility. Researchers have a social responsibility to disseminate research. Number 44. Dissemination as an institutional responsibility. Research institutions should facilitate dissemination of research and other forms of dialogue and interaction. Number 45. Dissemination and accountability. The demand for accountability in dissemination is the same as in research. Number 46. Dissemination and factuality. The demand for factuality is the same in dissemination as in the scientific publication. Number 47. Participation in interdisciplinary dialogue. Researchers should communicate across specialized academic fields. Number 48. Participation in public debate. It is very important to participate in public debate. Researchers shall bring scientific results, methods, and attitudes into the public discourse. Number 49. Institutional repute. Researchers should be careful about the repute of their institutions. These are sometimes those institutions which are providing you with the financial assistance as well. And the repute of the institution is itself very important. Therefore, the researcher has to be careful about it. Number 50. Affiliations. Researchers should give credit to all the organizations, all the collaborators, and to their institutional affiliations as well, because they are those who are supporting the research since the beginning. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more informative videos. Please do comment if you want further assistance to any of these topics. Thank you. Good luck with your reading.